What up, y'all? The Knight of Green here with my 600 sub special, a martial arts analysis on Filianor. Nah, just kidding. It's on Slaveknightgael. In this video, I will do three things. First, I will create theories on the development of this unique martial arts using item descriptions, lore notes, and game observations. Secondly, I will recreate the moveset as best as I can in real life. Third, I will go over the practicality of the martial arts and compare it to real-world fighting techniques. This video is the third part of the Abyssal Martial Arts trilogy, so I would suggest viewing part 1 on Artorias and part 2 on the Abyss Watchers to get the full experience. If you like this type of content, please subscribe to the channel, share it with people you know, and check out some of my previous works. While I am just a small YouTuber now, my goal is to bring more video game martial arts to life through recreating fight scenes, boss battles, etc., using real-world martial arts techniques and skills. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on with the video. Unfortunately, unlike the beloved Artorias and the feared Abyss Watchers, who themselves have item descriptions and lore notes in heaps, Gael is not so fortunate, as we have barely any information about him. This makes piecing together something like his martial arts rather difficult, though it is not impossible. First, let's find some things that we do know. Looking at his greatsword, he was once an executioner that used his sword primarily for beheadings. Despite his sword not being designed specifically for combat, Gael took it with him on all of his military campaigns. Based on his armor set, he was also a part of the Slave Knight group, which are described as being cannon fodder in pitched battles due to their undead nature that allowed them to resurrect themselves after being defeated. While I can't say for sure what types of battles the Slave Knights fought in, based on the information stating about how mangled and burned the Slave Knights would get, it is possible that they were used to fight off dragons and or demons. From these two item descriptions, I can say Gael more likely than not had very little formal martial arts training, and probably learned most of his unique fighting techniques from the sheer amount of combat experience that he gained from his long life of fighting and dying in wars. Based on his use of the Way of White Corona miracle, Gael was formerly a member of the Way of White Covenant, which essentially is a cult that served the gods of Anorlando. According to the item description, this was a very old miracle that formed when the direct influences of the gods were still strong in the world. Something to note about the miracle: the reason why it comes back to the user after being thrown is because it symbolizes the hope that the quote-unquote holy gods of Anorlando would one day return from their diaspora to better the lives of their forsaken human followers. Because of his use of this old miracle, and the fact that Gael knows about the long-forgotten Ring City, the Pygmies, and the Dark Soul itself, we can infer that he is a very ancient entity who may have been around since the first age of fire, or he may have came shortly after. At some point in the timeline, Gael became lost and purposeless, and he was drawn to a painted world for respite, where he befriended the painter girl. However, the painting that they resided in was not free of conflict, as the residents inside would fight over the destiny of the painting. In this time, he gained a new life's purpose and sought to restore the Dark Soul in order to give the painting girl a pigment in which she could create a new painting free from the issues that the current one possessed. We first help Gael to burn down the old painting, and at the end of the Dark Souls universe, we then find him mutated with a hole in his chest, and he is consuming the flesh of the pygmies so he can generate the blood of the Dark Soul. However, he knows that with the power of the Dark Soul, he would eventually become corrupted, so he was hoping that the player character would come to defeat him to then finish off the task that he started by delivering the completed pigment to the painter girl. Now let's look at the boss fight itself. In Gael's first stage, he fights on all fours and swings his sword wildly. He clearly has lost his mind from the whole ordeal, and he is not really doing anything tactful. Based on how busted up his weapons and armor are, we can see that Gael has pretty much thrown away caution and practicality to the wind, and he simply bludgeons his opponents with raw brute force and tenacity. In his second stage, he starts to gain a semblance of his humanity back, from finding out that he was so close to completing the pigment within his body, and then he fights like an average human boss. There's nothing particular that stands out, except for the fact that he has a rapid-fire, fully automatic crossbow, and his dark-infused cape is lashing out at you. However, in the final stage, he becomes fully possessed by the Dark Soul and starts spewing out abyss goo, and he also does some high-flying acrobatic maneuvers. As said in my previous videos, it seems that the nature of these acrobatic super parkour movements are the possible end result of being completely possessed by the abyss, which sadly means that he is lost and there's no turning back from that point. All we can do is honor his wishes by defeating him and taking the blood of the Dark Soul to the Painter Girl, who then can finally create her own world that is free from the curses that plague the current one. Anyway, I'm done with the lore analysis. Here is my moveset recreation. Hope you enjoy.
What stability? The blood. The blood of the dark soul.
Now, with that done, let's talk about the real-world applications of his martial arts. Realistically, most of what Gael does is rather impractical and should not be done in combat. But what caught my attention was his use of a cape in combat. In our world, there are combat techniques that detail the use of capes as an offhand weapon. A cape can be used as a makeshift defensive tool to jam up the attacks of your opponent. However, it can also be used as an offensive weapon. With weights attached, a cape whipping around or thrown can be used as a long-range stunning, blinding, or distracting implement, which then will open up your opponent to follow-up strikes from your main hand weapon. Unlike Gael, who uses a great sword for this, you would be better off using this combat style with a short one-handed sword, dagger, or thrusting sword like rapiers. Anyway, this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. As a channel update, while I will be focusing primarily on Demon's Souls content once the PS5 comes out, I will still be providing martial arts breakdowns of other characters at sub-milestones. I already have 2 characters in mind. Anyway, we are done here. Hope to see you with more content in the future. Bye.